founder of Level Up Score. And as always, I am really excited to be here with you all today. Thank you for being here. Those of you who are live, thank you. If you are watching the replay, thank you for being here. So thank you again. This week is the first week of the new year. How many of you have had New Year's resolutions and already stopped? Okay, so we are in the first week of the new year, and I'm really excited about 2026. But today I want to talk to you about something that I did. I deleted optional behavior, and I'll go in and I'll dive into what that means for you. But I've been looking at the work I did last year, the things I did last year, my personal life, my work life, what worked, what didn't work, and what I don't want to carry forward for 2026. And I hope you've done some of that work. But one of the things that I decided to do, and I did this in 2025, and I took it to another level for 2026. But instead of adding new goals and resolutions, I did something really different. I decided to delete optional behavior. Okay. And not because I don't care about my goals, because I do. You guys know I love having goals and setting goals. I did set goals, but I didn't add anything. These were goals that were already there. But because I realized that optional behavior was the reason that commitment kept breaking down in my life. Okay. And so I'll talk to you and share some stories with you of what I did in 2025 that worked really well. And you know, when something works, you scale it. When something doesn't, you remove it, right? And so, or look at it and see how you can learn from it and change it, that kind of thing. So today I want to share what I deleted, how I deleted it, and how you can use the same process for your own personal life, but also for your clients. How you can help your clients delete optional behavior. So if you've ever started something for the new year and quit already, or you quit, what they say, the day that most people quit is what we say in February the 14th, right? And so if you've ever done that, throw a fire emoji in the comments, because a lot of us have done that. And I just want to be real with each other on this, that we oftentimes will create goals that we say that are important to us. And then later we find that, we didn't do those goals. So we said they're important to us and then we didn't do them. And so we'll talk about that today, but with this idea of I deleted optional behavior. All right. So why I deleted optional behavior. For a long time, I thought inconsistency was my problem. Have anybody ever thought of that, right? Inconsistency is my problem. Maybe I needed more discipline. I needed more motivation. I needed more willpower to get things done. And through my studies in organizational leadership and my master's degree thesis, we talked a lot about this idea of like commitment, like what makes people commit and that type of thing. So when I really looked at what I was doing, it wasn't that I needed more discipline. I'm a very disciplined person, and many of us are. I didn't need more motivation, and I didn't need more willpower. The real issue was I gave myself too many outs, AKA optional behavior. I allowed things that I said were important to me to become optional. And so we're going to go into that and why I deleted that. So when I say optional, I started looking at my life in terms of 2025, and I did this in 2025. And like I said, I'm scaling this into 2026 in a bigger way, but I look at what were the things that were optional to me in my life? Optional planning, optional sitting down and looking at my finances monthly, optional follow-throughs, optional standards that I said I had for myself. And I say optional because I said that those were important, but I didn't do them. So they must have been optional, right? And so instead of asking myself, why can't I stay consistent? I started asking myself, what have I made optional that I shouldn't? Right? So if we say something's a commitment is something that we're committed to, commit. So it's not optional, right? But if I say I want to try to do this, or I'm going to do this, and I don't fulfill that, I'm having optional behavior on it, then it's an optional thing. So what I found that I wasn't necessarily inconsistent. I was allowing negotiations into my life. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But maybe in your life as well, there might be one thing in business that you've also made optional. So we kind of think about that for a second. So I'm going to give you a little background about my 2025 and some things I did to kind of run this home for you of what I'm talking about when I say I deleted optional behavior. So in 2025, there were some really important things for me that I felt were really important for my life. My physical health was declining. I was at my highest weight I think I had ever been in my life. Even the weight that I was like higher than when I was pregnant with my kids. So looking at that, I wasn't feeling healthy. My knees hurt, my joints hurt. I was sick all the time. And so 2024, as I'm looking at that, I'm like, man, what do I need to do? So I made a commitment in 2025 to change my health and get back into good health. It was always a priority to me. And for some reason, over the last 3 years prior to 2025, I kind of like let that go. And I'm not even sure why, but I did. And so in 2025, I decided I was going to commit to my health. And so a couple of things that I decided in that was that I was going to make a commitment that I was not going to drink for 90 days because I found that I live in Florida. There's a party all the time. A lot of people are here on vacation. There's constantly something to do. It's a very active place to live, but always what comes with that activity was a lot like, oh, let's go out and have a drink afterwards. Let's go out to eat afterwards. And so that kind of behavior, whether you're working out all the time or not, is going to tend to keep you from getting to your physical goals or whatever that might be. So that's what was happening to me. So I said, okay, then I'm just not going to drink for 90 days. I need to cut out some habits, find different ways of enjoying myself, find different ways of handling stress and etc. Right. But what I did that was different than most people is I didn't say, I'm going to try and stop drinking for the next 90 days. I instead said, I'm a person who does not drink. And this was wildly different than behavior I had in the past where I like to use the word I try. Because if I use the word I try and I fail, then it gave me the sense of, well, I gave it my best shot, right? But when I say I am a person that does not drink, there's something different that changes in my mind and the energy that I put out in the world. And so what happened was I was then able to show a true commitment. I'm a person that doesn't drink. So in those 90 days, I did not drink. But beyond that, I had people coming into my life, like my friends and stuff, who I would say, I'm a person who doesn't drink. I don't drink. And so I go to parties and events and all these things that I was doing before that. And I would say, I don't drink. And eventually my friends would, say it out loud to other people. So a waiter would come up and say, hey, can I get you a drink? They go, oh, no, she doesn't drink, but she likes iced tea with lemonade. Right. And so this became the kind of the thing that happened. So even if I wanted to have a drink or had any kind of desire to do that, they were reminding me of my goal, my big why, right? But I identified that this is what I am or who I am. So that's a big part of helping to eliminate that optional behavior is saying, this is a commitment. This is who I am and identifying that way. And so what happened was when I was able to do that and I successfully came to the 90 days and actually went beyond 90 days and kind of extended that throughout all of last year where I avoided drinking. It wasn't a big part of my life. What happened with that is that I was able to prove to myself that I can make a commitment and it was so easy. And that's what I want to share with you today. When you delete optional behavior, it becomes so easy. You don't have to worry about motivation. You don't have to worry about discipline because it's just a commitment. It's just who you are, right? And so because I found that to be so easy and I didn't have to negotiate with myself, I was allowing myself to make this whole new habit, or if you will, easy for me to shift to. So what optional behavior was costing me? So let me talk to you about that. When I deleted optional behavior, I deleted negotiation. I did not realize until I stopped having that optional behavior around me drinking that the energy that it took for me not to drink was minimal. Before, when I had tried to do things like this, and I say I'm going to try not to drink, then every day when the opportunity came to drink, every instance that the opportunity came to drink, then I would ask myself, okay, are you going to drink or you're not going to drink? Are you going to try not to drink today, or you feel like a? And so it was a constant battle in my head about right or wrong, good or bad. Am I going to feel bad if I have this drink? And I was constantly negotiating with myself. And I'm using the thing about drinking right now only because that's a real definer in my life in 2025. But I think you can apply this to anything, right? If we make it a commitment and it's not optional, right? It's just who we are, then there's no negotiation. So if I say I'm a person who wakes up at 3:30 in the morning, when the alarm goes off at 3:30 in the morning, I'm not negotiating with myself of whether or not I'm going to get out of bed or if I'm too tired and I should just stay in bed kind of thing. I'm a person who gets up at 3:30. I'm a person who works out in the morning after I wake up. So I'm at the gym. I'm walking to the gym at 4 a.m. in the morning. That's the kind of person I am. So because that's the kind of person I am, I'm not having a negotiation with myself of when I'm going to go work out. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to try to work out today, but today's really busy for me. So I'll skip the morning. Maybe I'll go in the evening, right? That's a conversation which I would call optional behavior, where you're allowing a negotiation to take place. When you delete that negotiation, you actually will have this lift of like emotional energy that was being sucked away is gone. So optional behavior doesn't feel dangerous at first, right? Because it feels flexible. Oh, I'm being flexible. I'm going to work out. I'm just going to work out whenever it fits in my day. It feels reasonable and it feels like freedom, right? Like, oh, I don't want to be like, give me, these set things that I have to do. That doesn't feel like freedom. That feels like stifling. But in reality, what I noticed is that optional behavior was actually draining my energy. It was draining my momentum, and I had to feel motivated to do something, right? So when I made a commitment, I stopped waiting to feel motivated, and consistency fixed itself, right? I didn't have to worry about, can I try to be consistent with this? Because I had made a firm commitment. It's who I am. When you're interested in something, you want to do something, I say, you can negotiate that. But when it's a commitment, there's no negotiation, right? So interest negotiates, commitment doesn't. I want to go into something because when I say these words of optional behavior, I think sometimes it can kind of like go over your head. You're like, what do you mean by optional behavior? And the simplest form that I can say is optional behavior is allowing yourself to negotiate something that you said was important to you, right? And so we can look at the level of something of what's important to us by the level in which we make a commitment to it, right? And so one of the things that I have been fascinated with the study of is how do people become committed to something? And so with that, I found that if I delete optional behavior, I can become committed. Okay. And so I have 5 things that I did in 2025 to delete optional behavior that I have extended and scaled for 2026 in multiple areas of my life after seeing that it worked. And I want to give those 5 tips to you. So stay with me on this live. I'm going to give you 5 tips, but I'm not just going to give you 5 tips for your personal life. After I give you those 5 tips for your personal life, I want to give you 5 tips that you can use to help delete optional behavior with your clients. This is going to be really exciting. So tip number 1, I decided once, not daily. So I decided once and I removed the daily debate. Okay, so here's how it goes. In 2025, when I decided that I was not going to drink for 90 days, I decided once. I am a person who does not drink. And I had a timeline date that on March 30th of 2025, I could have my first drink because that was the 90 days. That was a commitment I made to myself. I had a time frame for it. I knew what that looked like, clearly knew what that looked like, and that's really important. But I decided once, not daily. So if the opportunity to drink came and presented itself, it was a clear no, and it was an easy no, and I didn't have to negotiate with myself. It just was what it is. And I'll give you an example. I've extended that same 90-day goal. I do that actually every year right before my anniversary. And you guys might find this a little funny, but when we go to get married, before we get married, oftentimes people will dedicate a long period of time to getting in their best shape, work out, eat well, whatever. They want to look their best on their wedding day. And so that's kind of been my thing recently in the last few years is I'm preparing for my wedding day because March the 30th is my anniversary. So take that for what you will. Maybe you will join me in on that. But I prepare for 90 days for my anniversary or for my wedding day. And so it's a really strong commitment for me. I want to look my best. I want to feel my best on my anniversary date. So that's where this 90-day goal of not drinking came from. Okay. And a lot of other goals. But I decided once that that was my goal, and that's who I became. Right. And so here in 2026, same goal, 90 days, no drinking. And my husband has a bar in our house and he is a tequila connoisseur. And, he got a new tequila and he's like, oh, you got to smell this. It's so fresh and crisp. And I smell it. I'm like, oh, it smells great. He goes, do you want a little sip? The answer is no. No. I said to him, no, I don't drink. And he goes, yeah, you're right. We don't drink. And so once you commit to something, it's very easy for other people to say, oh, she's committed to that. She doesn't do that thing. and then they can help support you in that. So decide once, not daily. Don't allow that mental load where you're debating with yourself each day. Okay. So I stopped deciding daily and I decided once. Okay. That's really important behavior. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, I put commitments on my calendar first. If it's not scheduled, it's not a commitment. I told you guys in another live that I did, if you were to show me your calendar, I would know what you're committed to in your life, right? If your calendar is full of consultations, then I know you're committed to consultations and you're not committed to figuring out a way to do it better, right? Empty your calendar, right? I can tell you that you're the doer in the business, not the visionary, right? So I can look at your calendar really clearly and see what your commitments are. Your commitments need to be on your calendar, whether that's personal commitments, business commitments, it doesn't matter. It needs to be on your calendar. It needs to be on the calendar. Everybody else can see. They know that's blocked out. So for instance, in 2025, right, my goal of not drinking for 90 days on my calendar, it gave me the date of when I was allowed to have that drink, and that was on my anniversary night, right? And so that was important. But then also on that calendar, you guys know, a lot of you followed my journey and you can see my ribbons back here. But I had a committed to one 5K each month. And so I booked those 5Ks. They're on my calendar. It was a non-negotiable. I booked them, I paid for them. It's on my calendar, right? And so we're doing this stuff. And that's why I closed my business down in the end of 2025, always the last couple weeks of December, so that I can focus on filling up my calendar with the things that I want to be committed to, what's important to me. My things that are important to me need to show up first on my calendar. My business things that are important to my business need to show up first on my business calendar, on my calendar. Everything needs to be there before it happens. So oftentimes you'll hear a lot of your gurus out there that are motivational speakers and stuff say, plan your year before your year, plan your month before your month, plan your week before your week. Why do we say that? We say that because that shows what you're committed to. It keeps you on track. It keeps you focused. It keeps you towards the goal, right? And so tip number two is put it on your calendar, commit to it. So again, in 2026, one of the things that was really important to me was the 90-day no alcohol. I also am still continuing my one 5K a month, right? So actually I ended up doing all of the 12 months last year, plus in December is when I actually started it in 2024. So I got 13 months of ribbons up here, and I have a new goal this year of one 5K every month, but to end at a new record speed on running, right? And so those are on my calendar already. The other thing, and I was like, okay, this works. Commitment works. Having this deleting optional behavior works. And so these 5 tips I'm giving you work. So you got 3 more I'm going to give you that's really going to solidify this for you. But one of the things that happened as I'm looking at 2026 is I said, okay, if it works, what other areas in my life need my commitment? And I found that to be financial, right? I found that to be relationship with my spouse. And so on our calendar, the first day of every month, it's a day of we're closed. We are just working on our goals. We have created the goal sheet. We know what we're going to do each year, or excuse me, all year long, each month, each week. And then at the end of every month, we're going to sit down and go through each of those tabs in the spreadsheet that we created. And we're going to see how we did. Why? Because it's going to keep us focused. It's going to keep us committed to the big why. Why are we doing this in the first place, which is really important for you to know. But it's also going to keep us on track, right? Because we're going to be constantly looking at this. Again, commitments, put on your calendar, you're creating a commitment that helps delete that optional behavior. Okay. Tip number 3, I deleted vague language. I removed phrases like I'll try and I'll see. And when I hear myself say words like I'll try, I'll see, I'll try my best, I analyze that language and realize that oftentimes when I use those words, I actually mean it's not really important to me, but I know it's important to you. So I'm going to try to do it, but I'm not going to break my neck to do it. I'm not going to necessarily commit to do it. I'm just going to try. If I find the time, I'm going to try. And I don't mean to say it like that in terms of like it's not important to me when I say those words, but I realize that those words signify lack of commitment, right? And so when I go back to the 90 days of no drinking, the words I used was I do not drink. I'm a person who doesn't drink. I'm a person who runs 5K a month. I'm a person who fill in the blank, right? So vague language can actually jeopardize your ability to have a commitment. It shows that you don't have a commitment. It gives you an out. So optional behavior is having an out. It's being able to negotiate something. So again, a commitment, you don't negotiate. A commitment doesn't have an out. You kind of burn the boats and it's over and this is where you're at, right? Again, vague language creates that optional behavior. So we want to delete vague language and replace that with some very specific language. Like I am a person who, and fill in the blank. I do this, fill in the blank. Okay. All right. Tip number 4. I built structure instead of relying on willpower. Willpower is not reliable at all. It's built off of emotion, and women especially, we all have this, but women especially, our emotions change all month long. Happy, sad, mad, whatever, irritated, whatever, right? With our hormone fluctuations that we have on a monthly basis. So why would we ever consider that we should rely on willpower if willpower is an emotional thing and our emotions go all kinds of ways all month long, right? So instead, we should be building structure because structure is reliable. So again, we go back to things being on the calendar, right? We had a structured way of doing that. We knew we have a spreadsheet we're going to look at, and I'm talking about the goal for me and my husband and our business goals and our personal goals. There's a spreadsheet. We have our metrics that we're looking at for each month. We have the months that we're going to fill in, right? We have it all structured out. We have it on our calendar, right? We have a plan and a system in place of how that day is going to go when we take that day off. There is a structure to it. Structure is really important when you're looking to delete optional behavior. Optional behavior is not structured, right? Optional behavior is like, I'll try to go to the gym sometime today, right? I'll try to make that appointment. I'll try to figure out the finances for the business. I'll try, and there's no, this is the set time and date that we do it. Here's who's involved in this. Like, it's not put in stone or in a structured format that this is how we do things. So structure is really important to deleting optional behavior when you're trying to reach these goals and stay committed. Tip number 5, I added accountability to what mattered most. Accountability actually turns intention into execution. And so kind of going back to the thing with my husband and I, when we're talking about accountability, he's my accountability partner. I'm his accountability partner. We know what the goals are. We wrote them down together. We planned them together, both our personal and our business goals. We both know what we're trying to work towards, and some of it we're working towards on our own, but we're accountable to each other on these things. We know our big why. We know how to support and help each other because we took the time to structure it. We took the time to sit down and structure it. We took the time to sit down and say, this is what we want in our lives, and to actually plan for those things. So now accountability partner can come in and support you on that because we're really, really clear about what the intention is, right? And so accountability turns intention into execution. This is really important for everyone. Now, I did say in my last live, like when you have an accountability partner, it is important that you decide very carefully who that person is. There are accountability partners and there are people who want to pressure and push, okay, or deflate you. And so you have to be really careful about who that person is. But accountability person is not someone who's saying, oh, you screwed up, they're actually there to support you. If you fall down, they're picking you back up, right? And so that's really important that you understand the difference between someone who might beat you up and say, oh, you said you were going to not drink for 90 days and look at you, you drank, right? Accountability partner would be something like, hey, you made a commitment to yourself. This is why you made the commitment. This is very important to you. You had that drink, but that's okay. We can get right back on, right? Let's start over. Right. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about having an accountability partner. But it's really important to have accountability partner for the things that matter. I had people say, well, Allie, you're a financial coach. So why do you have a financial coach? I have a financial coach for my accountability. I'm not like anybody. I'm not different than anybody else. I'll spend money when I shouldn't spend money. I'll take risks that I shouldn't take. And so I have a financial coach to help me make better decisions, help me keep accountable to the goals I said I was going to make for my financial life in 2026. I hope that makes sense. So, or for instance, I'm a personal trainer. For years, I had a personal trainer. People always laughed at me and said, "Why do you have a personal trainer?" And I would say to them, like, you can make your own plan. You got good discipline. You got this, you got that. Yeah, I got good discipline because I have accountability, right? And so my personal trainer, wasn't that my personal trainer knew more than I knew, but my personal trainer knew how to encourage and support me as my accountability partner, right? So don't be afraid to have these people in your lives, even if you are one of those people. It might be the best decision you ever made. All right, so those are your 5 tips on how to delete optional behavior. Now, this is my favorite part because all of us who are listening to this live or on this live, or most of us, I would say, are probably individuals who are working with clients. And our job is to help someone get from where they're at to whatever goal it is that we are saying that we're going to help them get to. Fair? And so if that is true, how do we help our clients delete optional behavior? Think about this. This is magic in your business. If you're a credit professional and you are signing people up and they're not doing the things that they say they want to do so they can go buy the house that they want to buy, and you're wondering why they're not doing it, maybe they've had optional behavior around their I want to do this goal. And so what would make you very powerful person is to help your client delete optional behaviors as well. So I want to give you 5 tips on how you can take these same things and help your clients delete that optional behavior. Deleting optional behavior in my own life was really important, right? But I think it really, really matters when you're helping your clients also do the same thing, right? And if you see that you can do it in your own life and you can copy and paste and give that gift to your clients, it's a gift that most people don't have. They don't understand how to delete optional behavior. So it's something that you can give them a gift. Because if we're being fair, credit improvement is easy, right? So credit improvement is easy. So when things aren't easy, then, and if we haven't deleted optional behavior, it's very easy for them to say, this isn't working for me. I think I'm done with this, right? So we got to consider that. People don't fail because they don't care. They fail because the process feels confusing or overwhelming. Okay. They fail because they haven't committed. They fail because they have optional behavior around this. So I want to help you today, help your clients delete optional behavior in their lives as well. So I'm going to give you 5 tips, just like I gave you 5 tips for your personal life for your clients. So here is tip number 1. Again, decide once, not over and over. Clients tend to redecide the same things every single month, right? You update them, hey, I got this done, your credit score is this, and then they're redeciding whether or not they're going to continue to work with you, or they're redeciding if they're going to do something that they need to do. So the first thing I do is help them decide once what matters most for their goal. So what I do in this section with my clients is I'm really intentional about this is I want to know what their goal is, right? So that's important because if I say I'm going to help you get from where you're at to where you want to go, I need to know where you want to go. So that's a given. So I need to know the goal, but I need to know it deeper than just I want to buy a house, for instance. I want to know, why do you want to buy a house, right? And I've given this example many times, so you guys probably remember this, but the client who said, I want to buy a home because I don't feel like a man. I don't feel like I'm a great father. I don't feel like I'm a great spouse. I don't feel like I'm a good provider. The list went on. He was very distraught about this. But buying a home for his family to live in signified, I'm a good man. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. I'm a provider, right? So that was actually the big why. It actually wasn't the house. Probably if I were to sit down with him longer, I would discover that the house meant nothing to him personally in terms of he could care less having the house. The meaning behind the house was what he felt like other people felt about him by having that house, if that makes sense. So really digging deep into what their big why is will help them decide once and not over and over again. And so I'll help you even with that on some of the things that you can do. That clarity of them knowing their big why removes optional behavior almost immediately, right? Almost immediately. For me, 90 days of not drinking alcohol. Couple reasons why. I wanted to lose weight. I knew I wasn't making healthy decisions. I was getting into bad habits. I wanted to remove the bad habits. But my big why was preparing for my wedding day, or in my case, anniversary day. That was my big why. And then I could dive in deeper of why I was so passionate about that, right? And so because of that, I knew why this was my goal, and it would make it a lot easier for me to decide once, and not have to decide over and over and negotiate with myself. All right, step 2 or tip number 2 is put the monthly review on your calendar. So I schedule a monthly review with every single one of my clients. Okay. And I've heard many people that I've coached say, well, I do it every 40 days or I do it every 45 days. No, you need to do it every 30 days because we have a 30-day calendar. Okay. In that 30-day review, a couple very important things. And I do this with Loom. So I don't actually make a phone call to my consumers. And those of you who know me know that I do everything in video. But I would make a Loom video and show the clients their credit action plan. Okay, here's what we committed to. This is the goal. These are the things that need to happen in order to reach that goal. So we're really clear on that. But in that monthly review, I'm reminding them of their big why. Hey, so-and-so, I know how important this is to you. I know that buying this house signifies that you're the supporter of your family, and it's so important to you that you have that. So I want to remind you as we're working towards these next steps this month, that that's the real goal that we're working towards. So here's your action plan. Here are the 10 things that you need to do. Feel free to do as many as you possibly can, but here's the 2 things. Here are the 2 things that I want you to do this month. So I remind them of their big why. I review what worked and what didn't, and I provide clear actions for the next 30 days. This helps keep them from having optional behavior. I've given them exactly what they need to do. And I'll give you an example and perspective of me as a business coach. So I have tested this. So I'm going to tell you how I've tested this many times to see how it works on several different people. So I've had people come to me as a business coach and they want me, let's say, I'll give you an example. They want to start their own first business. And so they come to me, 2 different scenarios. First person, I say, okay, great. Why don't you go and research how to start your company, what's needed, if you need any, what you want to do, what's your passions, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you just go research all that, right? Client number 2 comes in, same person, but this time I'm giving a different response. Okay, so what I want you to do between this time and next time that we talk is I want you to decide on a business name, but I want you to do a lot of research on this. I want you to decide, look at what your passions are, what name really reflects you, what name can actually be an asset for you rather than a job. And what I mean by that is like, you're not going to name the company after yourself because it's really hard to sell it down the line, right? And so how do you make a name for your company that will resonate for years to come? That's not foo-foo and things like that. Then I want you to go to the, Secretary of State for your state and make sure that that name is not being used. I want you to go on to like GoDaddy or someplace for domains. I want you to make sure that name has a .com that's not being used. .com is really important. If you want more answers about why I say .com, let me know. You don't have to have a .com. I have a .ai, but I'll tell you why it's really important to make sure the domain of the .com is not taken. So do that research, and then next time we come together, we'll know exactly what your business name is. We can go ahead and get that done. Those 2 people, go back to them in 30 days to see how they're doing, or a week, or whatever we schedule. The person I gave the very vague instructions to didn't do anything. The person I gave very specific tasks to do did the things. That's really impressive. So again, on your monthly review, you want to make sure that you remind them of their big goal, what worked, what didn't work, and clear next steps. Super, super important. Okay, that brings me to tip number 3, which I kind of already segued into, is I remove vague instructions. Clients don't struggle because they're lazy. They struggle because instructions are vague. So like in the scenario of me helping the same person giving 2 different instructions, the one that was just kind of vague, hey, go out and research, kind of figure out what you want to do, blah, blah, blah. They came back and they didn't even research. They literally didn't even research. Almost 100% of the time. They didn't research anything. They might have like fluffed something to me like, oh, I kind of was looking at different names and I just couldn't land on one. Or, I was kind of researching a little bit on, and you can hear the words because they say kind of researching a little bit, right? But when I gave very specific instructions for them to do, and I usually only like to give 1 or 2, when I do that, come back and the things are done. Those clear instructions really help alleviate that optional behavior. So it was optional when I gave vague instructions, go research this, because how do I quantify that they researched it, right? I didn't give any like metrics that we're going to check back when we come back together. But when I said, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this for the name, they're going to come back with the name and having done the research on the name. So it's really, really important that you're giving very clear actions for your clients. So when we look at, level up score, for instance, as a credit professional, right? If we look at tip number one, decide once and not over and over again, we're talking about finding out what the big why is. It's really important as a credit or financial professional, is you need to know what the big why is. And then when we looked at step two or tip two, it's put that monthly review on the calendar. You're now making structure for them, right? You're putting that commitment on the calendar. They expect that you guys are going to have some kind of communication, however you're doing that, every 30 days. They expect that you're checking in on them because you also, tip number three, gave very clear, specific instructions. And of course, Level Up Score says, here's all the things that you need to do as a consumer. You're helping them pick the two most valuable things for them to do and setting them on that way. So the next 30 days, they at the very least do those two things, right? I usually pick a harder one and an easy one. So you make up how you want to do it, but that's how I do it. But very clear instructions. Tip number four, where am I at? No, all my notes are all messed up. Okay, tip number four is I replace willpower with structure. So credit improvement is an emotional process, right? So one day they're really excited, just like January 2026, New Year's Day, everyone's really excited about the new year. I'm going to do things so much better in the new year. And then a couple days later, like some bad news happened, and now the whole 2026 idea of having a great year is over until you get some other kind of motivation to do it again. But credit improvement is emotional. So if I'm working with someone, their credit score goes up, they're happy, they want to continue, right? If their credit score goes down, now we're in an emotional place where it's like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. So we are creating, in that instance, if we're going by emotion and we're not addressing emotion, we're creating this idea of, if it's not going well, then we shouldn't do it anymore. So an optional behavior, right? So we're trying to delete the optional behavior. So we're going to replace willpower with structure. We're going to say, okay, this is your goal. Here's the big why. Here's the things we need to do. Here's the action plan. We're going to go down this list. I'm going to give you 2 things each month that we're going to hone in on. You can do as many as you want, but these 2 things we have to have done before the next 30 days. In 30 days, we're going to check that. We're going to see the results of that, and we're going to have another 30 days. The faster that we can get through that, the faster you get to your goal, right? But creating that structure, letting them know what to expect in the journey that they're working with you, is going to help delete that optional behavior with them. It's not optional. In 30 days, I'm going to give you 2 things, and those 2 things, and when we review in 30 days, are going to be completed. If you struggle in any way, shape, or form with completing those 2 things, it's really important that you contact me so we can help each other through that, right? It's because you're the accountability, you're the support. If you do it right, you're not only helping delete optional behavior for them, you are also empowering them in their own lives to do the hard things that'll help them throughout their entire life. They're going to come back to this structure that you've created, this process, this helping them delete optional behavior as a standard in their life. Just like I did in 2025 when I made this deleting optional behavior thing for me, quitting drinking alcohol, right? Committing to the runs. When I deleted the optional behavior around those 2 goals, I succeeded in those 2 goals, and it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. But what did that do? When 2026 started rolling around, I'm like, oh, wait, I did it. I didn't have to push myself with consistency. I didn't have to push myself with willpower. I didn't have to say, depend on my discipline. I did it because I deleted optional behavior. And so I looked, I'm like, wow, that was easy. So what else can I apply that to my life? And that's what your clients will do too, especially if you kind of verbally state that you've done the hard work. Think about, now that you've done the hard work on credit improvement, what other hard work have you been avoiding that you can now do, right? And so structure keeps your clients grounded when motivation fails. Tip number 5, I lead with accountability, encouragement, and the big why. So again, during those monthly reviews, I remind them of the why that they started with, the big why, the big why. Why did they want to do this? Not, I want to buy a house. Why? What's underneath that, right? I was coaching someone the other day and they asked me, well, how do you find that big why, Allie? And I said, you keep asking why questions. You keep asking, tell me more about that. Tell me how that makes you feel. Tell me how that, blah, blah, blah. Tell me more. Why? And you'll get to that root why. And sometimes with some clients, you don't even have to ask it, but one time they'll say, I want to buy a house because bump, 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 bump. Take note, that's their big why, right? The single mom who says, hey, I want to buy my first house because the home that we're living in right now is not safe for my family. I want a safe place for my kids. I want the white picket fence house, right? That's the big why. So now when I have conversations on those hard times, when things aren't real easy, like we got to pay down a credit card, we got to pay off a collection, whatever that might be, when it's not easy, and they come to me and they're struggling, I can say, hey, so and so, remember the big why. You don't want your kids to live in that home anymore. It's not safe for them. You want to provide them with a safe place, a white picket fence where you feel like, hey, they can go outside and they can run and have fun. And you build up on that emotion of that big why for them. That's going to help them delete that optional behavior and keep to this goal with you. And let's be fair. It's not just the benefit of the client getting to their goal, it's the benefit of you too. If a client gets to their goal, guess what they do? They go tell everybody about you, right? Hey, Alicia, I worked with Alicia. I told her I'm here and I want to be here, and she helped me get there. And they're going to tell everybody. And then you don't have to worry about doing any paid marketing. I don't do paid marketing. You don't have to do any of this stuff because you have built such a great system of helping people get from where they are to where they want to go, that it is obvious in the world, right? People are talking about you and they're flooding you with more people. And so I think that's another important process when we think about how do we help our clients, we're actually helping ourselves along the way as well. Congratulating them on their effort, especially using words like, look at all the hard work you did. Look at all the effort you put into it. If you like to downgrade what has happened to this was easy, or you want to say that you did everything for them, like, oh, look, I got all these deleted and your credit score went up. You're taking that empowerment away from them. And thus, they are not going to do the things that are hard when it's time to do the things that are hard. But if you can constantly congratulate them on every effort they do and say, hey, you got a big why. And I know it's not going to be easy, but you're doing the hard work right now. You're doing the hard work. Guess what happens to them when something's really hard? Maybe they're in this process, they're working with you, everything's going hunky-dory, everything's pretty easy. You've been congratulating them on their hard work and their effort all this time. And then all of a sudden their car breaks down and now they feel like they're starting from zero again and they have to start over, right? They're going to be able to adjust to that because you are ingraining them in them that they know how to do hard work. And it's actually going to motivate them to do the hard work. They've done studies on growth mindset, right? So a fixed mindset would say, you would be pouring in, congratulating them how smart they are, like this was easy, blah, blah, blah. When you do that on a fixed mindset, then if something hard presents itself, they'll run away from the hard thing because they only want to be looked at as I can do the thing. But in a growth mindset, when we fill them up with, hey, you put a lot of effort in this is hard work, it automatically lifts them up to want to do more hard work, right? And so I encourage you to congratulate them on their effort, their progress, their hard work. People stay committed because they feel supported. And that's the real key. You need to be transparent. You need to be there. You need to be present in their experience. You need to be a part of their journey. And this will help to delete that optional behavior. So the idea is, here's their goal and here's where they're at and here's their goal. And you're going to help close that gap, get them there as fast as possible. So it's really important that you help them delete optional behavior. It's going to make them stickier. They're going to stay in the process longer. They're actually going to get to their goal. When people actually get to their goal, referrals are like crazy. People are always going to come to you. You're going to be seen as the real deal because you helped them delete their own optional behavior, not because you did it all. Because quite frankly, you can't do it all, but you help them delete their optional behaviors. Start with yourself first. Get real good at that. See that positive outcome of you making those commitments, deleting optional behavior, and then help your clients do the same thing. Thank you again for being on this live today. I didn't make this year better by adding more. I made it better by deleting what was optional. So if this hit you hard, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I needed this, type in the comments, delete, because that's what we need to do. We need to delete those optional behaviors. Structure creates consistency. Consistency creates the results. I just wonder, is there something in your life right now that you're allowing that you shouldn't allow anymore? Think about that for a second. What is something that you're allowing this optional behavior to control this, and it shouldn't be optional anymore? It should be a commitment that you make for yourself. If you find that level up score might help you help your clients delete optional behavior, I would love to invite you to a level up score demo. You can see us at levelupscore.com, and from there you'll sign up for your free demo account. You'll get a credit so you can run a client through, and you'll get to have a conversation with me. In that conversation, I'll show you exactly what level up score does, how it benefits you and your clients, and then also you will get to be able to get on my calendar to do a setup call with me. How do we set this up? How do we use it in a strategy call? And how do we make more money? You get all that from being on that demo call. So I'm really excited for you guys to take me up on that offer. Go ahead and go to levelupscore.com, click sign up, and I'll see you at the next demo. We will have a demo tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I appreciate you all. Have a great day and happy Tuesday.